Hello, everyone. Really happy that I'm being joined here today by Gail Heimann, who is not only the global CEO of Weber Shandwick, but also the jury president for the PR Lions at this year's Cannes Lions event. My name is Arun Sudaman. I'm editor-in-chief of PRovoke Media, and I'm going to ask Gail a few questions about the PR Lions jury and the winners. Gail, how are you doing? First of all, how was the judging? Was it more or less difficult in a virtual setting?
Well, first of all, hi, Arun. Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you. Judging more or less difficult. I mean, let's talk about the judging itself. This was the first ever virtual Cannes. This was the first time that Cannes embraced 2 years, 2020 and 2021, because there was no Cannes in 2020. So the judging, I would not use either more or less difficult. The judging was different for sure. And in that difference, there were positives. There were positives in the democratization that virtual working affords, which is everybody has an equal voice in the proceedings, and it's quite fair, and that's terrific. In a virtual room of 10 judges, everyone spoke, everyone shared, everyone presented his or her different points of view, and that was terrific. And the other piece is you are alone as in the judging process, whether one is physically there or whether one is in a virtual setting. One watches cases, and we watch the cases again and again and again, because we're picking bronze and we're picking silver and we're picking gold, and then we're picking Grand Prix, and you will have seen the case again and again and again and again. Oftentimes in a room, it's, people are pouring beverages and thinking about other things and doing whatever. In the virtual setting, it is you, your screen, and that work. And I think this process has been really beneficial to the work. A lot of attention is paid to the work, and that's what the festival is all about. So I feel like the virtual, this virtual format, you lose the electricity of the room, but you gain the focus on the work, which I think is beneficial.
Mm. So you chose to award 2 Grand Prix. I don't know if that's happened before in the PR Lions jury, but it does suggest a deadlocked jury. Was that the case?
No, so the 2 Grand Prix was that Cannes, in, I believe, each category allowed us to select a Grand Prix for 2020 and a Grand Prix for 2021. So it was not a deadlocked jury. It was one is 2020, Contract for Change is 2020, and the bread exam is 2021. So we were allowed to do that, and we thought they were both beautiful and meaningful pieces of work, and we chose to do that.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
What was it that stood apart in terms of these 2 campaigns, Contract for Change and the bread exam? And I suppose, do you feel that they reflect at all how the world has changed or is changing through the pandemic?
Yeah, I think a little bit. So a 2-part question, Arun, and thanks for that. I think both of them, in talking about, at least from my point of view, what we saw across the breadth of the winning work, and it was this element of subversion, this kind of brilliant subversion. And both of those cases did that in different ways, right? If you look at Contract for Change, subverting the entire process by which a company, in this case, Michelob Ultra, Anheuser-Busch, the relationship with farmers and being there for farmers to offset the cost of a crop so that they could move into organic, right? And that was done beautifully, and I think was subversion for good, right? And then you go to bread exam, which is a piercing a taboo in a culture. First, understanding the culture, piercing that taboo, doing it so gentle subversion that leads to something quite powerful. It was lovely work. I mean, again, those kinds of ideas, and it's hard for the jury because when you see this vast field of work, you feel like you've seen bits and pieces of these ideas before, and that's always a discussion in a jury, for sure. But the way this was done, the strength of the taboo, the gentleness, the intimacy of the overall work in the case of bread exam, that led to a powerful impact was lovely. And that's why we went there on the Grand Prix.
Mm. Do you feel there are any perhaps broader trends that you can discern from either or both of those campaigns that speak to how PR campaigns are kind of developing today and perhaps in the future?
Yeah, I think, much has been discussed, right, about the role of PR. And I know you've covered and certainly other media have, in terms of idea agency and being part of an integrated.
Oh, we'll talk about that next.
Don't worry. And we'll talk about it. These were both integrated cases, right? And I don't want to walk away from the power of owning idea by any means, but our clients need great integrated work. Our clients, our collective, the industry's collective clients need great integrated work. Both of these cases were great integrated work. And if you look at what the PR part of the integration is, that weaves the narrative, it weaves the stories into culture. And that's what beyond the PR category, that's what's being judged at Cannes. If you look at any piece of work, it is how it has been woven into culture. That's the work winning the Grand Prix across Cannes, right? So, so what these cases say is that those integrated campaigns are important. They're going to continue to be important. They're going to continue to be the campaigns that build business and drive change in society. And we got to pay attention to how we enter that, for sure.
Yeah, and it suggests that maybe for some campaigns the public relations aspect is the most important component. But of course, Cannes does have the idea creation credit, which sometimes appears to sit atop the kind of hierarchy. And certainly from that perspective, it looked like another tough year for PR firms, none of which are credited for idea creation on a gold PR Lion winner this year. We've been here before. I feel like we've had this discussion ad nauseum.
We have had it.
The phrase.
We've had this discussion.
We have. What is your message for the PR industry this year in light of that?
Well, so listen, I will never walk back the incredible joy, power of creating the idea, right? I mean, that is, we are idea people. We are an idea industry. We have built ourselves and shaped ourselves over the past years to deliver the most powerful, the most seminal, the most important ideas. I will say, if we look at this period of time that Cannes embraced, right, which was 2020 and 2021, we look at the past 18 months, we look at what happened in the world. PR was at the center of it. You look at whether it be public health or economic crisis, or the crisis around racial injustice, or mental health crisis, or information disorder, all these crises, PR was at the heart of it. PR has been counseling and developing in there, and not only shaping stories, but making a huge difference for clients in business, institutional clients, government clients, et cetera, around the world. So we are there with ideas, and the most important and powerful kinds of ideas that exist, for sure. The message to the industry is we have to continue to do that. We have to be brave in creating those ideas. I saw the report that came out and that you published, I think, that today, around the study around that is a little bit dissonant with what happens at Cannes, right? That clients are saying that PR agencies are in fact owning ideas when you go to Cannes, and you're not seeing that reflected necessarily in the win. So I think overall, so we have to be there. We have to continue to be brave. We can't, we can't get pushed aside in an integrated setting, which for sure can happen. But overall, I see the other pieces. If we look at Cannes, there's a mathematic imbalance in the entries, right? I mean, that's just there's pure math. We have to enter more. We have, in the places where we are making the ideas for clients, we have to enter it, I think. And I will say this to you in the privacy of this conversation with everybody that we're having.
Yes, just you.
It is. PR agencies, one, that Cannes historically has been an advertising festival. PR agencies came later into play. It is costly on resources to enter Cannes.
Mhm.
Even when one is not going there for the La Croisette, whatever, it is costly. I'd like to see the PR industry and the organizations in the PR industry globally step up and scholarship some of the medium and small agencies to get into Cannes. I think
Mhm.
mostly it's a big agency. It's a big agency thing, right? And
Yeah.
you know, Weber Shandwick is in it for sure, proud to be in it, and others in our industry, but we're not reflecting the breadth of the industry, and part of that is because the cost of entry can be tough for some. So can we scholarship people to get in so we can begin to change the ratio? That would be the question I would ask.
Yeah, good points. I mean, you referenced our creativity and PR study, which, yes, today came out with the finding that actually more PR firms are leading idea creation, are taking on lead creative duties for clients. I suspect you're seeing that as well. Is it just the case that maybe those campaigns are less award winning in a Cannes sense? I mean, we see a lot of it perhaps in B2B, in some of the less sexy areas, perhaps. I hate to say B2B is not sexy, by the way, because
No, never say B2B
no, I
is
know
very sexy,
it is.
Arun. It's
It is. I
very
know. Yeah,
sexy.
yeah. I'm disappointed in
No,
myself.
there's extraordinary B2B work. You know, again, in our jury, some, you know, practice B2B. There was a lot of love for some of the B2B work. So do I think that we're not entering in the categories with the bombast and whatever? Perhaps. You know, what's interesting about this Cannes, and I've not done an exhaustive study of all the Grand Prix winners across every category, but it felt to me like there's no dominant campaign, right? That it feels like each category is picking work that they feel is emblematic or, you know, or representative, best represents the craft of that discipline versus a fearless girl, which, you know, which seemed to dominate across multiple categories. That struck me as interesting. And there were certain repeaters for sure in the Grand Prix and PR we saw in other places. But I felt like there was some kind of real reflection on the craft and the importance of the craft and the sort of what the craft delivers in each category. And you know, in PR, I think we picked narratives that were woven into culture quite beautifully and made a difference.
We should note, of course, I don't know if you saw, but the Edelman campaign has taken the entertainment Grand Prix and for ASICS, I believe. And they are credited for idea creation on that. So that is a good sign for the industry.
No, it's terrific.
Terrific. After so this is, I think, 12 years now of the PR Alliance. Does it worry you that after 12 years, CMOs may simply conclude that ad agencies are better at PR than PR firms?
Yeah, that would be a worrisome takeaway. However, I think the story that needs to be told is really, and we sort of started to go there at the beginning, every winner at Cannes is really a PR entry. I mean, that's just it. And that has probably shifted over the last several decades. But if I look back to the last 12 years, and we look at those winners that have, you know, astounded the festival and taken all the top lions, they're all PR. I mean, they're all stories that have been woven into culture beautifully, magnificently, enduringly. That's what we do. So I honestly think we as an industry, we've got to shape shift the attitude of CMOs to recognize that when you bring in the people who have the power to create this fantastic idea at the core of whatever it is, it's the campaign, and also have the power and ability to weave it into culture, that yes, we should be the dominant presence. So I feel it's only been 12 years. There's many decades to come. Arun, you and I will be having this conversation, you know, when I'm in a rocking chair. But it's, I think there's real opportunity. I do think the world has woken up to what it is we deliver. And as you know, some of it is gravitas, right? I mean, some of it is that kind of gravitas thing that doesn't necessarily sing in a festival. But I think we'll see an evolution. I really do. I do believe we'll see that.
Yeah, I agree with your observation that really the campaigns that win at Cannes are really PR campaigns, especially the big winners, because of the way they impact culture. But of course, that suggests then that everyone is playing in the PR discipline. And I don't know, does it pay to get that territorial about it? Are we beyond that now? Or does some element of turf need to be defended?
Yeah, I'd like to think, listen, I'd like to think we're beyond it. I'd like to think that in an integrated scenario, and many campaigns that have won, including those in PR, are integrated campaigns. I'd like to think best practice is there people enter in their swim lane, but at the end of the day, you have 4 or 5 individuals, and the teams of those 4 or 5 individuals that are simply great consultants, and all of whom are sharing equally in the process of building an idea that delivers for that campaign or client. So should we not be territorial? No, we should not be territorial. But listen, we have teams of thousands of people who do extraordinary work, and we could argue that we are all kind of tribal in nature and we belong to something, and so therefore we want to represent our teams. I mean, I should say in that kind of it's a little bit of digression, but in that kind of integrated work, there are people who are part of those teams who love it and believe in it and have worked so hard for it, and to feel like it's dismissed in some way because it's not that it hasn't gotten this idea award, that's not right either, right? So yeah, to answer your question, are we beyond it? Yes and no. I mean, we should be, but we owe it to those who are part of our organization to support the extraordinary work they're doing in whatever way they're doing it.
Yeah, well, that's a good note on which to end. Gail, thank you so much for your time. I guess you can take a long break now after the PR Lions judging.
Long break, yes.
Long break, no doubt. I mean, I'm sure it's not a busy time for you at all.
No,
thank you. You've been really candid as always. Some really great observations. Thank you to Cannes Condensed. I hope you're having a great day over in Brighton. Back to you.